All right, so today our self-storage facility, we actually have quite a few contractors on site. So we have guys putting in vinyl lettering, so the numbering for the units. We also have our internet people that are getting that done as well. And then we have fencing, sign company, electrician, and camera guys. So trying to coordinate everybody at the same time. It's nice having everybody here at the same time too as well, because it saves me a number of trips. So right now, the biggest thing that we had today is the first thing to do that we noticed that kind of was off was that our vinyl lettering. We asked for 3.5-inch lettering. Unfortunately, they printed 4, which will not work for the amount of space that we have in between the units. The steel manufacturer that we went with, as you can see that header right above the storage unit, that's corrugated. I personally do not like to put a sign on with a rivet because it's just one more entry for water or moisture to get into. We like to be vinyl lettered directly on. Some steel companies actually have it where that header is completely flat, so it's a lot easier to do it. When they don't, I actually will basically put it then right on this platform right here, or sometimes we do it right on the inside edge too as well. And then we'll put it on both sides in that case too as well. So that's one thing. So we actually have to have a lot of the letters reprinted. Luckily, we caught it. They weren't trying to, put it on or have it wrap around the corner, which we've run that into as well. And so that's one thing as well. The other thing I'm checking for is placement of lighting. So we don't have an idea yet on it because we just got power. But in a second here, we're going to try to turn the lights on. And luckily, I have some shadow right here too as well. But I'm going to just really quickly test the coverage of the lighting to make sure that we don't have any dark spots when I'm going through the driveways. So, one thing that I get is a lot of times people talk about planning sites. They talk about, we're going to do a phase 1 and phase 2. And then we're also putting in a impervious surface driveway. One of the things you also have to consider is if you're going to do a phase 1 and then a phase 2 and 3 later on, how is that heavy equipment going to get through your place in order to get that through? If they're going through that front driveway where you're already going through as well and you have all this heavy equipment going over that, then that may not be ideal because they're going to rough up that driveway. So what we have set up on this unit actually is that we actually have it set up where if at any point in time we develop, we have a plan for how they're going to develop it, and we also have a plan on how we're going to change up the drainage. So in this case, I'm going to take you over here to the corner of the lot. What we're doing here is we basically have another road that actually is a little bit busier that we can access from. And essentially what we did was we put like kind of like a tiny wood ramp to hop the curb for it. But over in the corner, as you can see right there, we actually have a spot where the trees are going to be cleared out. So that's where we can bring heavy equipment in the forward without bringing it into where, they might bump into all my steel buildings or whatnot. Now we have we're going to have about 3 rows of self-storage units. We set up, and I get this question a lot lately, how do we set up our boat RV? We give them as much space as they need to because we don't want them hitting each other. We don't want that, and we don't want them hitting the building. So we give our boat RV people 40 feet, 10 foot wide. Now, in some cases, we recommend people going 12 foot wide, but the reason why we're going 10 foot wide is because 1, you can't really get anything on the road bigger than 10 feet wide anyway, so they should be able to get it into it. But 2, we also allow them to drive through. So sometimes if people are parking, though, what they'll do to save space is they'll do a 40-foot RV, and then right on the other side of the 40-foot RV, they have another 40-foot RV. So they have to back out or they have to back in when they initially go out. We don't want our customers to have to worry about that. We want to be completely brainless. So what we do is we have them actually drive through the unit. So unfortunately, it takes more space up, but they have 60 feet of space on one side, 60 feet of space on the other side. Now, if you're in a market like San Francisco, you're not going to be giving them 60 feet of space on both sides because that real estate is a very high cost. So you got to factor in the cost per square foot of your land. Here, we got the land cheap enough that it makes sense for us to do that. Plus, you see this forest here, right here. This is all ours too as well to further develop. So we talk about planning as far as what do we want to do for plan if we build. So you can see right here, this is kind of marked off right here. This is actually kind of a drainage ramp right here. But down the road, let's say that we get really busy and we want to develop more storage here. we can develop more storage here, or we can add more cars here. But then how we're going to access this is, because this is kind of an L-shaped lot at this point in time, is we are going to basically keep this drainage the exact same, but we're going to have it where there's a culvert right here, which is basically a cylinder, concrete cylinder, and then this is going to be a driveway. They're going to drive over this driveway, and that's how they will access the rest of the this lot right here. And so by doing that, then now, however, we can set up our drainage over here now. So this side of the lot right here will tie it into this drainage right down the middle. Oftentimes you see drainage on a property go all the way around, which requires more drainage. This way, we're actually going to have a set where drainage goes right here. So it allows us to save on drainage, even though obviously we're going to have another driveway on this side too as well. But that's how we'll tie in basically this site. And that's a $100,000 mistake right there if you're looking at phase 1 versus phase 2, if you don't know how you're going to plan it. And so now you see this right here too as well. It's actually kind of neat to see, but this water right here, we have had a ton of rain these past few days. This water basically is getting directed kind of like a river where it goes all the way into this drainage pond. And having difficulty on that. So that drainage pond, as you can see, it goes all the way over here. Tons of depth. So what's going to happen is that all that water kind of runs over there and it sits out that way. Now in some settings, depending on where you're at, the cities actually have a rule where the water has to be retained on site for X amount of hours before you tie into drainage. Like let's say that I'm tying it into a local stream or whatnot. It has to either sit for a certain length of time, or it has to be filtered, where you're not sitting rocks and things like that too as well. This site is not that case. This site actually, even though we do have the opportunity to tie it over here, very, very small stream over here. It's kind of hard to see in the distance. It's all going to be 100% retained on site. Part of the reason why you're able to do that is because we have a ton of sand, but then we also just naturally have the land. So we don't have to worry about holding the water. Even though if we do hold the water, we're going to push it all the way over here. Now, one other nice thing about this area too as well with this retention pond is that this likely will never hold water. Like I won't have a pond here, so I'm not going to have to worry about mosquitoes basically like settling here, nesting up their eggs or anything like that and causing issues. But I have this set up actually now where it's definitely a good amount of elevation. So let me try to walk into it. But when I sit or I stand into the middle of this right here, what's nice about that is that I'm walking down kind of slowly. I can mow all this. So, I mean, I've seen retention ponds before. I'm like, man, that is so deep. Like, I don't know how someone's going to mow into that or they're going to flip it. But all this right here, I'll be able to mow. So it's going to look pristine and clean because we want our facility looking clean, as well as always, being free of pests and everything as well. But you can see right here, we got ultimate drainage set up right here. So, and then over here, so you can see, so after a hard rain, this right here, this is all washed out right here. So we got stones right here. So probably will put a little bit more stone right here just so it doesn't wash out a little bit too fast right here. But ultimately, overall, this is working exactly the way that we intended. So next week, we expect certificate of occupancy. This facility, actually, we are fielding offers to sell immediately. So it looks like we will not be looking to stabilize this facility on the back end as well, as we've already received offers to sell at this point. But I have another site that actually we're working on that's actually quite a bit more complicated that we're looking at that we'll be talking about. I know one of the questions I've gotten in the past is building in areas with a floodplain or building in areas with basically tiny drainage with a PUD. So we'll tighten those into that next week.